When this world was new and fresh, undeveloped, the human problem was quite different from what it is today. If you can imagine yourself being in a Garden of Eden as it is pictured in the church and in the Western society, a garden or a world unexplored by human beings, with trees, beautiful trees, plenty of beautiful flowers, unpolluted waters, clear atmosphere, unpolluted air, with animals and people in a primitive state or condition. That kind of world presents quite a different challenge to the man and the woman than the world we have today. And that kind of world, the challenge is the jungle, the animals that walk on fours, and the snakes that crawl around, right? So the challenge there is not the challenge that we have today. In the early history of the religious movement, and when I speak of the religious movement, I'm talking about all righteous people who led the people to truth, called the people to truth, from Adam till today. In the history of this movement, we find that people were first called to recognize the simple truth that exists. They were called to take a look at the world and get a picture of it and try to understand the physical world that surrounded them. So in the scripture, in the Genesis, we read that God said, "Let there be light, and let the light be separated from the darkness." And he created a life of the water, the fish, and the life of the land. And that there were boundaries separating these things. And he hung the stars in the heavens, the sun and the moon and the stars. So the Genesis opened up trying to get the reader to observe the physical world about him, the natural world. So the first attention is to the natural world. And when life starts, that's what you have to deal with first. You have to deal with the threat that comes at you from the physical, natural world. A man who lives to himself out in the woods somewhere, in the backwoods, in the country, far away from civilization, he doesn't worry about invading tribes, doesn't worry about high interest rates. He worries about a storm that might come up, or animals that might invade his privacy and threaten the life of himself and his family. But once man subdues the physical environment and makes a home for himself in the physical world, then a new threat comes into existence. Someone wants to take his home from him that he has of his own strength brought about for himself. So the physical world threatens the man until he's able to subdue it. Once he subdues it, put a fence around himself, so to speak, to keep out the wild animals, and make a home safe for himself against the wild animals, put a roof over his head against the rain, walls to keep out the waters and whatnot. Then someone comes around and they look at what he has. They don't have it, or they don't have equal to that in value or in worth. Then they begin to scheme to take it away from him. The first enemy is the physical environment. The second enemy is yourself. Not yourself as an individual, but yourself as people, as human beings. Once you overcome the physical challenge there from the physical world, then you have to face the challenge coming from individuals, from people. And if you look at the scripture, the Bible and Holy Quran, you will see that these things are put in proper perspective to get us to see that there is a path that life has to travel. Life has to come up out of the physical creation and deal with the problem, with the hardship that it has to face in the physical environment. And after it comes through that, then it has to deal with human beings that are wicked, selfish and cruel. We may even go back one step before that. To satisfy the scripture. The individual himself is also a threat to himself. So the individual has to understand himself and his own nature. Because even after he overcomes the physical environment and makes the physical environment agreeable to him, still he's a threat to himself because his nature is so unformed. The human being is not a creature that is formed complete. He's a creature that is always trying to form himself. He's always trying to improve upon his form. So because we have so much freedom over our form, we face a threat from our own self, and that threat is this. We are always subject to do a thing that destroys us, even though we know what is good for ourselves. So we have to understand our own strong points and weak points and keep an eye also on our own self so that we don't become an enemy to ourselves. Is that right? So we have these three threats coming against us. A threat from the physical world, a threat from ourselves as individuals, and then a threat from the society, the human society.